everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with our distinguished, amazing panelists. In today's discussion, we're going to speak about the role of real estate in attaining net zero. So as we know, real estate spaces in forms of building, campuses, utilized for living or work has becoming the key focus area for humans. We journey through our evolution. Across the value chains, the emphasis in increasing on asset life extension, improving utilization, and reducing operation expenditures on building themselves have a huge impact on real estate. So, as I mentioned in today's discussion, features distinguished panelists. My name is Reem Al-Musabbah. I'll be your moderator for today's discussion. I want to thank you for being here with us, and let's start with a simple introduction about yourself.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Popic, and I was born in Bosnia. At a young age, I moved to the United States. That's where the home is. And then, by fate, I ended up in Tulum and decided to build a sustainable project. It's an amazing place on earth, and I was drawn to it, and that's what got me here today. I am in Dubai to raise money for my project and also to meet people that have similar goals or different goals and visionaries.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting us. My name is Kareem. I am from Lebanon, half Danish. I came to Dubai 6 years ago in 2015. Initially to work with the Executive Council, but what drew me to Dubai was the sustainable city. And whereas I spent 15 years working in conservation, I met a very visionary developer called Diamond Developers, and they stand behind the sustainable city here in Dubai, and that's my home, and that's where I work. So I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for the company, and we're now in that phase of replicating that proof of concept, so exporting the sustainable city from Dubai to other markets.
Thank you, Kareem. So when we speak about net zero, as we know, it has sprung in the recent years. It refers to buildings with zero net energy consumption in various aspects. So can you tell us more about how do we build a low-carbon real estate towards a decarbonized future?
All right, so this is really the challenge, the enigma. And a city, the built environment, if it's in the metaverse, and perhaps there will be cities in the metaverse, they have another digital carbon footprint. But in the real world, sustainable cities and cities in general have a massive carbon footprint. And I would like to simplify it down to, if you can think with me, upstream and downstream. So when we build, we call that upstream. That's excavation, earth-moving equipment, pouring concrete, materials, transportation, and so on and so forth. We also call that upfront footprint. And downstream is when we cut the red ribbon and then we hand over property or real estate to end users. And that's when we switch on the lights and the air conditioning, and we have appliances and we have lights, etc., etc. So upstream and downstream. So the challenge upon us is how to neutralize this footprint by 2050. The sooner, the better, because, as you know, the time is clicking. And so if we want to decarbonize the construction industry, we really need to think, how do I build with carbon in mind? How do I consume less? How do I downsize? How can I innovate in the materials that I use? So long as we are concrete dependent or car-centric in our design, our cities will continue to be carbon intensive. So we really have to think outside the box and disrupt everything that we learned the last few decades. And there's a lot of conventional wisdom that we can recycle from the UAE, from Egypt, from any country in the world, and I think it's important to recycle that knowledge for a low-carbon future. Downstream is easy. So downstream, that is when I need to offset all of this energy consumption, let's call it electrical power, from renewable energy sources. So can I power now the Hyatt Grand Hotel, this convention center, from renewable energy? The answer is yes. And how do I do it? And how much do I need? At the level of a city, how much renewable energy do I need? And do I have it within my city, which is called distributed solar, or does it come from the utility, from DIWA, SIWA, Abu Dhabi Power Company? And those are two sources of renewable energy. So I really need to think upstream, how to decarbonize, and downstream, how do I achieve net zero? Ultimately, when we combine those two, we can aspire to become net zero in the future.
Yeah.
Before we move to Diana, a follow-up question. Without a doubt, 70% of electrical bills in the GCC is because of ACs and chillers. So how do we reduce that? Kareem,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A follow-up question to Kareem.
So how do we, yeah, absolutely. So in this part of the world, we need to recognize that the world is very different, right? There is so much diversity in climates. If we're able to build sustainably in the UAE, which is a very harsh climate, then it's much easier to do so in other countries like Mexico or the Levant or the Mediterranean. And yes, air conditioning in the UAE is about 70% of our utility bill, so that's very significant. So for us to reduce cooling demand, air conditioning dependence, I need to design with the climate in mind. So we call that climate proofing, which means we need our homes and houses and buildings and schools and campuses to avoid the sun. In Germany, in Poland, in Ireland, they need to face the sun because they need that source of heat. So the first thing to do is avoid the sun. And then everything inside, I'm looking at these floodlights, they consume a lot. The air conditioning system, the water heating system, the appliances, the equipment, the pumps, all of them have to be chosen with energy in mind. So we call that demand-side management. So when we combine orientation, avoiding the sun, insulation, and demand-side management, I can significantly reduce heat gains and air conditioning consumption.
Thank you, Kareem. And as we know, a critical part in energy consumption is the design of the building itself. So Diana, when I was speaking with you, you told me about this exciting project and business you're building. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. It was very important to choose the market where you can build sustainable project. Not every market is welcoming that, and we spoke about that today briefly. So in 2018, Tulum was one of the first tourist places that supported sustainability. It was a big thing knowing that. So coming into that market and also understanding if we would get the support from the local government was important. So we reached out to them. We reached out to the director of development of the city of Tulum as well, which they are, of course, we were very welcome, and they guided us and informed us of what steps we need to take. Also, it's very important that communication with an architect, understanding that all of that's included in the conceptual design as well. So, which we are following through. It's kind of the basis of it.
And following up on that, can you tell us the basic measures that we should take into consideration in building and planning, the building facade in itself to reduce the energy conservation and consumption, I mean?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example of what we are planning to do. It's that the beaches of Yucatan Peninsula are now experiencing a lot of seaweed. It's still beautiful scenery, but what we're planning to do, doing research and talking to the scientists, is using that seaweed and making ampoules to power the resort, not just ours, but the ones that are surrounding. We're also doing further research, talking to the local architects and designers of using the material. So it's pretty interesting.
Yes, and I remember I had a conversation with one of my professors there, and he was telling me that because we like a building in France does not mean we can replicate it here, because we need to take into consideration, the materials used, the traditional facade, the architect, and so on. So Kareem, what is your thoughts into this, and what do you think of the infrastructure here in the UAE?
I think we live in a blessed country where the planning is really decades ahead of its time. So this is why this country is able to set goals and targets. 2020, that was many years ago, 2030, 2050, and so on and so forth. And like the rest of the world, we're urbanizing, and I think the UAE as well. And the challenge for all of us is, how do we urbanize while maintaining quality of life, while reducing cost of living, and also while supporting biodiversity? We call that, regenerative. And if there is one metric that I can share today, and I would love the audience to remember that, as we plan the future, the real estate future, we need to consider embodied carbon, EC. Embodied carbon is how much energy and emissions were caused by infrastructure development and real estate development. And we quantify that, such as 300 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per square meter, right? One benchmark, one metric, and this is how we can plan for a low carbon future.
Yeah.
All right.
And I would like to add there that we need to build around 75%, 70% of infrastructure, and also the rest 30% of real estate to meet the net zero goal. So, yeah.
Interesting. And just to wrap it up, because this is a very short panel discussion, if you would give, an advice to real estate developers to act now to the transition to net zero, what will it be? Starting with Diana.
Just create a positive vision and don't give up. I believe this is what we just spoke about as well. Just being passionate about it. Thinking about the future and children and doing something with a purpose. It's beautiful.
I would say think outside the box and recycle conventional wisdom.
All right, as much as I would love to take this conversation with you guys further, but we're out of time. So I want to thank you again for being part of this panel discussion. I've learned a couple of valuable insights, and thank you all for listening.